It's Thursday, November 18th, and I would like to call the November Parks and Rec Board Commission, the Parks and Recreation Commission, I'll get it out, meeting to order. If we could call the roll, please, Kim.
Bob Karstens,
Here.
Russell Clark,
Here.
Peter Doran is excused, Bill Dorier,
Here.
John Galbraith,
Here.
Scott Joseph,
Here.
Al Larson,
Here.
Kevin McEllier is excused, Dave Taylor,
Here.
and Chris Maxbauer.
Here. This is our opportunity for first public comment. Kim, would you read the rules for public comment, please?
Any person shall be permitted to address the Park and Recreation Commission, which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act as amended. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding commissioners' questions. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson, at his or her discretion, may extend the amount of time extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak.
Would anyone like to make public comment? Seeing none. Are there any additions to the agenda?
I'd like to add the snowball softball tournament presentation as special order of business presentations, number 3, please.
I would entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Is there support?
Support.
Discussion? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries. That will be number 3 under special order of business. Number 1 is me. Community swim lessons. This has been a passion of mine for several years, and I just wanted to make a brief presentation to the Parks Commission. And at present, and I wrote it out so I could go quickly and my thoughts would be in order. At present, while everyone in Grand Traverse County pays for Easling Pool, not everyone can use it. It requires a fee to use the pool. And I believe we need to take steps to change that, and at the same time, I believe we can substantially increase the pool's value to the community. And I believe an important first step is to have a goal to teach every child in Grand Traverse County how to swim. And every swim lesson class should be full. If we're paying for an instructor, if we're paying for utilities, and there's an empty slot, we should fill it regardless of ability to pay. The scholarship, the swim scholarship that we have received thanks to the Grand Traverse Band was a good first step, but that's not going to last forever. And what I am asking the Parks Commission to do is to consider in 2011 asking staff to look at ways that we can fill classes, swim lesson classes. Even if we gave up every cent of revenue from lessons this year, according to the finance director, and I brought computer printouts for everyone, we would only be giving up $17,113.71. And in my mind, to provide that kind of value to residents of Grand Traverse County, I think it's doable. I know this is not the time that we should be looking at perhaps reducing revenue, but I'm looking at this from a value standpoint rather than a revenue standpoint. And so I'm just asking the board to think about that as perhaps a goal in 2011. Thank you. Next on our agenda, cyclocross at Vasa Trailhead.
Okay, my name is Jason Lowitz. I live at 1253 Smith Road in Traverse City. I'm here with Rick Morris here and Jason Whitaker sitting right here. We're proposing a cyclocross course at the Vasa Trailhead, located, I guess we'll get into that later, but basically a cyclocross course for the community to ride our bikes on and potentially maybe in the future hold an event. But probably most of you probably don't know what cyclocross is.
That's correct.
Right, okay. So I'm actually just going to, I'll hand it over to Rick here to just get right into it and explain what cyclocross is.
So we put together a little PowerPoint presentation with a few pictures as well. We thought that might help. The first picture here is of a cyclocross race and kind of demonstrates partially what it is. It's basically a form of bike racing. Excuse me. There's very short courses, using, like I said, pavement, wooded trails, grass, things of that nature. What makes it a little bit different than most normal cycling you may have seen is that cyclists actually get off their bike and they'll kind of carry their bike over barriers or run up hills and get back on it, which is what you see in the next slide here. Is basically a person riding up to the barriers, getting off, carrying his bike over, and then they continue on. Cyclocross growth in the last 5 to 10 years has been quite substantial as far as in the cycling industry is concerned. It's the biggest, fastest growing segment of bicycle racing in the United States. We have been putting on some bike races here in Traverse City for about 2 years now. One of the things I was involved with is we were trying to get the national championship race here. We were the runner-up, unfortunately. But I think that it's something that in the future, we think has a lot of promise to come here. And why that's important to most people, I think, in the city that even aren't participating in or don't know what it is the economic impact. Bend, Oregon has had it last year, and then they'll have it again this year. And as you can see, the economic impact for that area is really quite substantial. And kind of closer to home, the Iceman Cometh mountain bike race, which probably most of you have heard about. This year it had 4,000 people. And again, the economic impact of that was even more substantial. So having these bike races definitely helps the community, as a whole, for sure. What we want to do is basically just build a course, basically at the Vasa Trailhead, the ski trailhead, in some land that's really not being utilized right now. We plan on just using the existing, trails that are there in the existing area. We don't want to take down any trees or remove any vegetation or anything like that. It's really mainly just kind of cleaning the area up, marking out some trails and riding for the most part. We obviously would want to keep the area clean and neat as well. And this is just an example of a couple of cyclocross courses. As you can see, it does not take a lot to build a course. It's really simple. There's not a lot of impact to the area. It's just very, very easy. And you guys already have maps, I believe, but this is just another map kind of showing the area kind of behind the warming hut, if you're familiar with that, that we are interested in using. And that's it. Yeah, the area now has a BMX course that at some time was used there. It hasn't been obviously for quite a while. When we went out there, and we're just kind of riding around. It's really mainly just debris and kind of just overgrown field right now. But really this kind of thing, is just a win-win, I think, for most people. I mean, the Iceman, Bob McLean from McLean Cycle and Fitness is here as well, kind of supporting us, and he can as well can talk about how things like this kind of bring people into the area. Locally people buy these bikes and when they want to do it, when it's something different. In the races, they can bring in a lot of money to an area, so it can be quite substantial. Again, with the Cherry Roubaix, which is what Bob's been putting on the last 3 years, it's been bringing in a lot of money to the area. So, we think that having another kind of type of bike racing in Traverse City is really just a good thing. So,
Are there any questions from the board for Rick and Jason? We'll start with Commissioner Karstens.
Would people who aren't a member of your group be able to utilize that
Yeah,
course?
absolutely. I mean, this is open to anybody.
That's cool.
It's just, we're bringing it to the table. There's dozens of people in town now, in the area that are already riding their cyclocross bikes and kind of riding around the Voss in different areas like that. So, no, we're very much, looking for this to be inclusive for everyone.
Because I can see younger kids wanting to come, once they learn that it's there,
Right.
kind of flocking to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us, it's, the more the merrier. I mean, we're looking to try and, get as many people involved and interested in this as we can. I mean, that's really the whole point for us, really.
Jason?
cool, Amy.
Oh, I'm sorry. but-
Commissioners, I just want to let you know that the map that you have, the additional packet that's on your desk this evening, the map, the area that they're talking about putting or having a cyclocross track is the kind of the clearing that you see at the upper left-hand corner of the yellow, of the area outlined in yellow that shows where the Vasa Trailhead is. Right now, there is several years ago, there was a group that decided, or that were able to put a BMX course out there. And the BMX course is pretty beaten up and has been utilized in quite a while. These guys there's currently some cyclocross being ridden in this area. These guys are coming to the commission, I think, and let me know if I'm wrong, to get the blessing of the commission to move forward in working to develop, with minimal impact to the environment, a more formalized cyclocross track in that portion of the park. I've walked the site with these guys. This would be an appropriate usage for this park. It would have minimal impact to the vegetation. Wouldn't impact the Vasa race or anything closer to the well-established Vasa Trail. And this would be a good fit for this environment. They've gotten some community support from McLean Bikes or from McLean's, and would like to move forward with this with approval from the commission.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes. What are the actual physical improvements you need to do to the property? Are there permanent fixtures or elements?
Nothing is permanent in the sense of it can't easily be moved. I mean, really, the only thing for us is, we put up those barriers like you saw in the slide, and those are easily removed,
Sure.
in 2 minutes. And
Can you guys go back to the photo on
Yeah.
one of those slides?
I guess my question is, I think it's an excellent use. This property has over 90 feet of grade change in it within 40 acres.
Right,
And obviously, we're sensitive to erosion
right.
concerns and those types of issues, especially if a particular piece is just beaten and beaten and beaten on.
Sure,
And
sure.
so if these facilities can be adjusted over time, if a wear pattern is being established, it's going to create an impact on the environment. I mean, that would be a positive attribute to this type of use, in my opinion. Low impact would be phenomenal. But another recreational activity on this property would also be an asset.
Yeah, and absolutely, I mean, that would be, the way we would see it too, is that we would, probably every month or two, switch it around. So you don't have people going over the same area over and over and over. I mean, for us, it just makes it more interesting and more fun. So, the fact that it is better for, the actual environment is great as well. So, yeah, I mean, we're definitely, aware of that, that we would be not wanting to do any damage to the area, for sure.
Anyone else? Commissioner Galbraith?
Are you guys formed as a nonprofit or a group of individuals?
Right now, just a group of individuals.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been putting on some races locally with some other people in town, but this is really just just something to help this sport grow. I mean, it's definitely not something that we're looking to profit off of. It's more to kind of help the area profit off of more than anything else, and have another recreational sport for this area, which is obviously growing, and more people are kind of coming to town for that particular reason. So we're
absolutely.
hoping this is just one more.
Yeah, I think it's terrific. Be a good partnership specifically for that part.
Right.
Commissioner Larson?
You said you were going to use existing trails. Would those be the trails that people walk their dogs on now, or would those be separate trails, a specific area What's your vision for that?
I guess when we say existing trails, we mean more existing area. We're really not going onto the VASA system, the actual trail system per se. The area that we want to utilize, like as you can see in this, I mean, you can't really see it in this area, but it's basically just pretty much a big open field. So it really won't impact, people, hikers and walkers, or even people that are riding their bike on the actual VASA ski trail or skiing on the trail or anything like that.
Commissioner Clark?
Have you communicated with the VASA board about this at all, this use on the property?
We haven't spoke to anybody, I
No,
don't think, on the VASA board. We have talked to people on.
Nothing official.
From
I
Target.
called Julie Clark today, and she said,
Trails, okay, trails.
and she was happy that you had that plan, and that it would, and she felt that it wouldn't impact the VASA trails. And I have walked across that area when it was used by the BMX people,
Right.
and they used it quite a bit in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I didn't see any harmful erosion
Great.
at that particular time. It's a good use for that spot,
Right.
because it's just a barren, almost like a wasteland.
Yeah, right now it
really.
kind of is. Yeah.
Literally, there's garbage.
Anyone else? I have just one question. The issue of maintenance, who is going to maintain the area? Does it need to be maintained?
I mean, we obviously would be more than happy to maintain the area. I don't think it'll need a lot of maintenance. I mean, if we can get the go-ahead for this, the first thing we would probably do is clean the area up. I mean, right now, it's just has, a lot of random wood and garbage and things like that, so that would be, the first thing we would want to do. But other than that, I mean, we're more than happy to maintain the area as needed, for obviously keeping it clean of garbage and things like that. But as far as having the city having to spend time and money, there's really nothing that we think they'll have to do.
Jason, do you agree?
I agree. The city won't spend any money on this, the county. No, but I think this is a good opportunity. There may be some things that our facilities management staff may have to help out with, and one of the first things would be eliminating some of the debris from the BMX trail that used to be on this site. I think this is a good step. As a commission, you've talked a little bit about developing a Friends program of each of our individual parks. I think this would be a good step towards possibly having some new friends of the VASA Trailhead for environmental stewardship and things like that out there. This is something that would be appropriate for me to manage hand in hand with these guys. And I think this is would be a benefit to the community, providing a new recreational opportunity that hasn't necessarily existed in a formal way within the community. So I don't foresee a problem moving forward with this. And our risk management consultant, or our risk management agent will be up here on Tuesday. We're meeting about a variety of different topics, but this is something that I'll talk about with him as well.
I'm fully supportive of this. I think, the more people that can use our parks, especially with minimal impact, I think it's great. My only concern is the maintenance issue, and committing Danny Brown's crew to yet more work. And we've heard at the county board level recently that from Danny, and especially from his staff, that their workload is increasing and the number of workers are not. So that does concern me.
Sure.
I really don't know what the next step would be. Jason, I think maybe it would be appropriate to put it on next month's commission agenda, and in the meantime, ask you to meet with the risk management person, check with Danny Brown, because his department certainly would be impacted.
All right. The biggest impact I think that they would see would be maybe a little more trash that they'd have to pick up from the trash bins out there.
Oh, well.
Because what these guys.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just asking, if you could
Okay.
check and just bring it back to the commission.
Sure.
And you might want to run it by the county administrator.
Okay.
Commissioner
Ask one more
Clark?
question? Thank you. The obstacles that you were referring to, and I saw on one of your pictures, who is purchasing those, who's liable for them, and who stores them?
Well, I mean, obviously, we would purchase them and store them. Liability, I guess that's something I would have to look into.
Okay.
You know, as far as that goes, I'm not really certain on that.
I think our director needs to probably
That's-
check with county prosecutors.
I can check, I mean, riding bicycles on this property is appropriate, and we
Oh,
already
yeah.
assumed
I know,
some
just-
risk
Oh, absolutely,
associated with it.
absolutely.
And I think this would actually,
But I would love to see it move forward, and I think, I certainly believe it can. But I think it needs to be brought back to the board next month for a motion and a recommendation from Jason.
okay.
All right?
Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, snowball softball tournament. Mr. Hinckley? Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Tim Hinckley, 3015 East Partridge Court, Traverse City. I'm the executive director of the National Cherry Festival and also one of the organizers of the Cherry Capital Winter. It's known as Winter Wow Fest now. This, I think, is our 5th year. It'll be our 2nd year that we're making a request to use the Civic Center ball fields for the snowball tournament. Last year's snowball tournament in February was, I think, a really good success for a first start. We had 16 teams. Many of them came from out of town. This year, we've always tried to be scheduling around President's Weekend. We've done that again. President's Weekend is the 18th through the 21st. It's a long weekend. It's a good opportunity for bringing people up from out of the area to fill up hotel rooms, and that's one of the things we do with this tournament is that we really publicize it. I'd never heard of softball in the snow, but apparently it's a big deal. And there's quite a group of people that want to come and utilize the facilities. It'll be a one-day event. It'll be on Saturday, February 19th. We'd start approximately 10 in the morning. We're anticipating a round-robin tournament where we get about 24 teams. We'd really like to try to do it within one day. We tried doing it 2 days last year, and we just think that this is a much easier way to do it. Just to bring everyone up to speed, we used several of the ball fields. The staff here was great. Jason was great to work with, and we really appreciate that. They actually had a lot of fun, and it made it an overall enjoyable event. The feedback we got was that people had a great time, and that's why we're very confident that this is something that will continue to grow. We not only use the ball fields, we have a warming tent. In the warming tent, you were kind enough to allow us to serve some beer. We didn't serve very much, but we did serve beer. We had food, we had entertainment, we had live remote with radio stations all day. We sold some goods. And I would say just for a first go-around, it was a very successful event, something we would certainly like to do again. That's why I'm here, is to ask for permission to be able to use that and work with you and Jason and the team to make it another successful event.
Any questions for Mr. Hinckley from the board? I believe we need a motion. Is there one?
I'd like to make a motion that we allow the Cherry Festival to allow them to use the Civic Center for the snowball softball event on Saturday, February 19th.
Is there support?
Support?
Discussion? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, same? Have a good time.
Look forward to you guys having a team there on the 19th.
Can I
Okay,
get
next.
clarification on who supported that? I'm sorry.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, I was typing away, sorry.
It's all right. Next on the agenda is the consent calendar. Kim, if you would read the consent calendar when you're ready.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such request will automatically be respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive, file, or approval is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. Receive and file, Lutra report, pool membership report, performance measures matrix, scholarship committee report, rules committee report, pool RFQ, budget report as of November 9th, 2010, and a subcategory of budget spreadsheet. Communications, Tara Ward, Great Lakes Pioneers. Parks Commission meeting per diems. Referrals, none. Approvals, Park Board regular minutes of October 21st, 2010.
Would any member of the public like anything removed from the consent calendar? Would any member of the board like anything removed from the consent calendar? Commissioner Larson?
I'd like the Lutra report and the performance measures matrix to be removed, please.
All right. Lutra report will be number 1 under F. Lutra report. And number 2 will be performance measures. Is there a motion to accept the consent calendar as amended?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Clark. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Commissioner Karstens. Discussion? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries. Number 1, Lutra report. Removed from the consent calendar. Commissioner Larson.
I just had a few questions, Kim, on your matrix.
Sure.
Let's see, item number 11, you say in progress is increased daily visit fees. Can you discuss what we're talking about there exactly?
I go online every so often and just check all the local fees, and then check I check Manistee, Charlevoix, our up north area, the couple pools up in the UP, and then I go on and check nationally as well. It's always kind of been on hold because that was something that we were going to take care of with strategic planning. So I'm just doing my homework and keeping working on it.
Okay. Establish additional benefits to membership, number 15.
We have, as part of what I'm seeing nationally with pools and not so much in our area, one of the things that I'm noticing people are doing to establish those additional memberships goes with the fees, and they're establishing registration fees. And if you're a member of the facility, you don't have to pay the registration fee. So
that's more homework on what other pools are doing?
exactly. Yep.
Okay. Number 17, reduce hourly labor expense. What in progress, you say, what are the efforts that are in progress?
That's constant. Always
Okay.
looking at it, seeing, checking the schedule, checking our numbers to see, can I cut staff here or there, that kind of thing.
Okay, I didn't know if there was some specific initiative. And then, would that be the same then for number 23, correct inefficient rentals?
That's sort of some of it. Some of the other work we've done to correct the inefficient rentals is, an example was scuba. They would come in, they would have the whole facility. They have to come in after hours because of the amount of equipment that they have and the amount of people that they bring in. But they were only paying for a third of the pool because they only used the deep end. I went in and watched several of the rentals, and granted, they mostly used the deep end, but they did, they had the whole pool. The building's open to them only. So they were traveling around and using it. So in the spring, the scuba stores got letters saying that we'd love to continue having you here, but when you rent, especially when you're coming in after hours, you'll have to rent the whole pool and pay for the additional lifeguard to be there if one is needed. So.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Is there a motion to receive and file the matrix, the Lutra?
I'll make
It was
that
under our
motion.
consent calendar for receive and file.
I'll make that
Do you-
motion.
I'll second it.
Is there discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Next on the agenda, performance measures. Commissioner Larson.
I just had a question. Is this addressed to you, Jason? It's really about the activities totals report page, which is talking about, I believe, swim lessons.
I know we haven't had anything formally agreed upon regarding performance measures in this
Right.
commission yet. What I did, though, is because the pool is a constantly changing and it's a year-round activity, and it's one of the performance measures that the committee identified, I asked Kim to put this together kind of as a trial run for that, as to whether or not this will meet the criteria that you guys had, that the performance measurement, or performance metrics subcommittee had for performance metrics. So this is kind of a trial and error in talking about the revenue, the contribution margin, as well as the number of members that we have.
The min-max, their min of 110, max of 327, is that, those are, what are those?
Kim's going to have to clarify. Kim will have to clarify that because that's something.
I'm on the activities totals report.
I cut and paste, I'm sorry. I believe that's from, what it is actually a much larger spreadsheet that comes right off of our ActiveNet system, and that includes all of the swim lessons that were taught. It's each listed down one by one by one. And so the minimum class participants that we could have had over the summer, if each class met minimum, which is 3, would be 110.
Okay.
The maximum that we would see would be 327.
Okay, so that's a capacity, those are capacity numbers. And then hours is
The number of hours that we spent teaching lessons.
of like labor hours or like hours of,
Hours per lesson, so each 30-minute class. Some
Is 30
classes may
minutes.
be 45 minutes or,
the sum total of the number of hours of lessons
Correct,
given, okay.
correct.
Number of days is simple, resident, non-resident, so the total is 230, falling in between that min and max of 110 and
Correct.
27, okay. And then the average is the number of participants per class?
No, that average is the average number of days that
Number of
each
days.
class took.
Okay,
So it may have been some classes were 5 weeks, some classes were 6 weeks. So some classes were 1 time a week. So in each session that the participants took, the average number of class times that they met was 6.8.
okay.
I would entertain a motion to receive and file the performance measures matrix.
I'll move that.
Is there support?
I'll support.
Moved and supported. Discussion? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, same. Board governance policy.
Still a work in progress, I have nothing to present.
That's fine.
And
All right.
Actually, Commissioner Maxwell,
Yes.
I can either present, I was supposed to follow up with the commission based on the meeting that I had with Dennis Alloy and Tim Nelson. It would be appropriate for me to either update the commission here or during my director's report. It's really up to the commission.
And why don't you do it in your director's report?
Fair enough.
All right. Next on the agenda is something I requested, Memorial Tree Program brochure, page 63 through 65 in your packet. And first I want to say to Commissioner Clark, thank you very much for putting this together. After I saw it, I showed it to a number of individuals. And the first question was, how much does each tree cost? You know, I'm interested in purchasing, and I've got people that are interested in purchasing. So I had lunch with Vice Chairman Doran, and he and I agreed that it would be beneficial to put the cost of the tree on here. Now, we understand that the price is subject to change. But as we hand these brochures out, and I've got, we can hand them out to the maternity ward, because what better way to celebrate the birth of a new family member than planting a tree and watching it grow year after year? Funeral homes in memory of loved ones, the senior center, which is now going to be the Grand Traverse County Senior Center, not the building itself, but the organization. The building still remains a city park, and I say that for the members of the public. for seniors who want to celebrate an anniversary. But I do consistently and repeatedly get a request, how much does the tree cost? We could say right on there, price subject to change, and trees may go up, they may go down. So I'm asking for the board's opinion as to whether or not we should put the price on the brochure.
In my opinion, it's an easy thing to do. We just put it next to the name of the tree. And the intent of this was just to basically spark the interest and then go for more detail in the actual guidebook. But I agree, having the price with the tree name would help perhaps carry that interest a little further to actual going forward with it.
Mr. Dwyer?
Maybe to you, do we anticipate a wide variation in price between these
No,
different trees?
the prices do not vary very much between the various types of trees, basically based on sizes.
Maybe we should just set one price. I mean, if there's not a reason to have a wide variation.
Well, with the witch hazel and the last one on the list is a much lower price than those above it, which are trees. So there are basically two prices in our price sheet.
Okay. I'm just trying to think how to simplify it.
No, that's fine.
Another thing to do is have the prices on the website where you can easily change them. And we could leave the brochure alone, but I'm not opposed to putting the prices in the brochure.
My first question was, well, I wonder how much a tree would
Yeah,
cost.
and I hear that
That just came to my mind
repeatedly.
immediately. And
You know,
so
and, you
if they
know-
put approximate,
Subject to change.
Yeah, just put subject to change.
Right.
And
you could save a phone call.
Right.
yeah,
It's a nice brochure.
it really is. Now, Commissioner Clark, you designed the brochure. I'm assuming that the Parks Department will be printing them up, or,
Right,
okay.
correct.
The only thing I ask Russ, we don't have the program to change it.
You don't have the software?
If you just slap the prices on there, we'd be happy to take care of the rest.
I'll make the changes and give you the,
Thank you.
That would
And
be,
you feel free just to email it to me.
all right. That would be great. Number 3, strategic plan, work plan.
I apologize for not having my work plan within the original packet, but I did email it to each of the commissioners because it was kind of an unusual size, and I wasn't quite comfortable with the format after some additional thought when the commission packet went out. But you guys were emailed an 11 by 17 work plan, or a 2011 strategic work plan. And you also have it as part of the packet that's on your desk because it is an 11 by 17 document. So the document I'm referring to is this one. And within this document, this is something that I worked with, the format for this document, I worked with for the first time when I was in Leadership Grand Traverse a couple of years ago in regards to a project I worked on with the Chamber of Commerce. This is also something that it looks eerily familiar to TART's new strategic plan. And when I read their strategic plan, I found it to be very easy to understand, very straightforward, and basically my entire work plan is this one sheet. I've identified the mission as well as the core values that this commission has approved for our department. I've kind of given some challenges, some trends and opportunities under analysis assumptions, and then identified the goals and the objectives that this commission prioritized last month. I've provided some proposed start dates for some of these goals and objectives, and the reason I planned them this way is simply because there are some opportunities for a couple of these objectives right now that I'm trying to capitalize on. The business plan, the ADA plan, and the safety audits, those are things that I'm hoping to take care of in spring and summer after planning is complete for the 2011 MRPA conference. As well as working on starting the DNR plan next month. It's my intent, as you can see, designated by the open circles, the proposed start dates, the dashes when I'll be working on the project, and a proposed completion date. So I've also got some follow-up, some unresolved issues below that I've identified, and in the future, as I continue to work through this, I'd be happy to update the box that says future budget implications. So I wanted to submit this to the commission as my work plan for basically starting November, moving through December 2011.
Jason, how often will you be updating us on your progress on your strategic plan?
I think it would be beneficial for me to update the board and my director. I think this streamlines very well into being an update within my director's report every month. And I think that provides some continuity to my director's report because I can update the commission based on the progress I've made for each of these goals and objectives.
Anyone else? Any questions? All right.
Cool.
Moving on. Build a Pool Conference. I have, well, you know, I apologize. I had emailed Jason and said I'd have this in the packet, and I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking that all I had to do was deliver information to the office 7 days in advance. That would have been Thursday, and Thursday was Veterans Day, and the office was closed. So, if you would take one and pass this down. I'm just offering this for consideration. I went to a Build a Pool conference about 2 years ago at my own expense, and it was in Colorado Springs at USA Swimming, and it was excellent. Not only did they present new innovations for pools, which in many cases, in most cases, were cost-saving devices for water treatment, energy, etc. They also presented programs that have success and have exhibited success mostly from private owners of facilities. I checked, and there is a Build a Pool conference in Chicago, Illinois. It's now just a day-and-a-half conference. It's scheduled for May 13th, and it's in conjunction with the American Swimming Coaches Association. And I just wanted to bring this to the board's attention, to Jason's attention, and to Kim's. And I recommend that Kim and Jason strongly consider sending her, and hopefully there are no objections to that idea. I'm not hearing any. But of course, you know, it's not my decision, but I wanted to make the recommendation. All right. Any questions?
Would it be possible for a commissioner to attend if he paid his way?
Certainly. Anyone can attend.
Okay.
And I will tell you, it's a group of individuals, USA Swimming. They know swimming better than almost anyone in the country. Mick Nelson has a BlackBerry, and he tracks the number of pools that close every day. He gets emails. I don't know that people realize this, but 2 pools close every day in the United States due to lack of funds. I just think I found it a beneficial conference for me. I thought Kim might consider it, and Jason might consider it. All right. Moving on, Finance Committee. All right. I asked that this be put on the agenda. We have a Finance Committee on Commission on Aging. The Beta Board has a Finance Committee. Generally speaking, boards have Finance committees where they review just the finance report from the director on a monthly basis, and they watch the pennies. And the Finance Committee, I'll give you an example. Georgia Durga at the last Commission on Aging Finance Committee came to the Finance Committee and said, I have to move a substantial amount of money into emergency senior assistance. Emergency senior assistance is provided through the Grand Traverse County Commission on Aging, and seniors are eligible up to $1,000 per senior but it's capped, that's your lifetime allotment for emergency assistance. And they have done everything from help people repair roofs, furnaces, drill water wells, but recently there's been a demand for emergency assistance for prescriptions and dental work. And so Georgia informed the Finance Committee that these are the budget items that she's going to switch. And when I was looking over the finance information from the finance director, Dean Bott, I noticed a substantial number of balance transfers, budget adjustments, and there's a large number of them. And we don't have any oversight. Certainly, we don't have any control over those budget adjustments, but I think that the Parks Commission should be informed of those budget adjustments, what we are addressing, what we're not addressing. And so what I'm recommending for consideration for next year, because it's going to be a new budget year, is a Finance Committee. So please give it some thought. Commissioner Larson?
And I don't completely understand, the role of the Finance Committee would be to oversee the finances of the Park and Rec?
Commission, the department. Yeah. Okay. All right. Aquatics report, page 84. I'm sorry, Jason?
I'd just like to mention to the commission, talking about finances, this is an issue we addressed last month as to whether or not this board needed, or it was necessary for this board to approve budget expenditures, or in this case, budget transfers. And in my narrative, I've quoted, and I asked Dennis Aloya's opinion, I've asked Dean Bott's opinion, as well as Bob Cooney's opinion. And all three of them are in agreement that a finance committee at our level is not necessary, because there's a finance committee that all of our finances, all of our expenditures go through at the county board level. They have a special committee of county commissioners that already approves this. So we would be, in effect, duplicating services, and because it's done at that level, that would be, to some degree, micromanaging how we do things, or how our department operates. The budget transfers, the line item transfers that Commissioner Maxbauer referred to, all of those budget transfers are done within each different department in the budget, and they do not impact any allocation that goes to the Parks and Recreation Commission, to the pool, any of our departments. So that's simply changing money around within the same department. I don't feel that the Finance Committee is necessary, simply because we have that oversight, and I think it provides even better checks and balances through the Finance Department and through the Board of Commissioners. But within the packet, within my narrative of this item, I do quote Dennis Aloya, and I do have the information I presented, the emails from Dean Bott and Bob Cooney last month in regards to finances. I can provide that for you again if you'd like to review that.
Commissioner Doyer.
So I was a little confused. So this page that's in here, that's page 68, is your response to the concept of establishing a finance committee? Is that what this is?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And all of these transfers happen within the Parks and Recreation budget, correct?
They happen within the Parks and Recreation Fund, as well as they happen within the department, within the budget. So within our 208 fund, for instance, the Parks and Recreation Fund, we have several departments: commission, civic center, swimming pool, etc.
Yeah.
Each of these transfers happens within the civic center or within Easlink Pool. So they're all transfers within that same department even.
Okay.
I certainly respect your opinion, Jason, but clearly mine is different. I do attend the Finance Committee meetings at the county board level, and they do not review budget adjustments. The reason that I feel it's necessary at this level is because this commission recommends a budget to the county board. And what I noticed when I was looking at budget line items is year after year, you will have a budget line item of, for instance, and you're not the only department that does this, you will have a line item that says, for instance, copying at the Civic Center, and it's $500 every year, okay? And not a nickel is spent every year. And so when you look at the budget, the proposed budget, you really don't have a clear idea of what the expenses are. If you consistently put $500 in a line item and never spend it, then that's not it doesn't help in the budget process, and it doesn't help this commission in the budget process. Now, I will tell you that the Commission on Aging board does make a budget recommendation to the county board, and we do review it, and we do try to be accurate. We try to give a realistic picture of where those expenses are, and I think it's necessary. I disagree with Jason, but I just would like the board to consider it. Commissioner Doyer.
Well, just to take it a little further, so it sounds to me like the particular problem you're trying to get at is really a county-wide problem. It's not a Parks and Recreation problem. It's the way the county budgets.
It depends on, no, not really. It depends on who prepares the budget for the department. Some departments are extremely close. Some departments are very, very accurate. But my experience as I'm looking at these budget adjustments is the Parks Board, the Parks budget is not. And I can pass this down, and you can just take a look as of 11/4 under the Civic Center pool line item. I mean, there are budget adjustments all over the place on here that are quite substantial, that, you know, unless you get a printout of the finance page from the finance director, you don't know where they're going. You don't know where the money's going.
Commissioners, those are, all the budget transfers are included in your packet. Those are the subsequent pages.
Right.
And you'll notice some of them, I know you guys don't know my handwriting versus that of Dean Bott, but a lot of these aren't even line items, aren't even changes that I've made. They're changes that have been made for a variety of reasons. Right after we approved the 2010 budget, this commission decided to go to taping meetings, which created a new line item, which generated this transfer. We then decided to take on baseball in February, which generated this sheet of transfers. So these transfers are things that are things that we have to alter. They're things that we have to change in order to meet the needs of this commission, meet the needs of the department. Can we do a better job of budgeting? Absolutely. We were asked to cut $27,000 out of our budget this year. We actually cut $59,000 out of our budget this year. I think that's a pretty substantial change moving forward for 2011. And to be honest with you, this is the second budget that I've worked on that's been totally my budget. So there are some changes that we need to make, and it's going to be a process working through these.
And I'm not questioning your authority to move the budget line items. What I'm uncomfortable with is recommending a budget when line items are not reported accurately. But other commissioners may feel differently.
Not recorded accurately?
No, not when budget line items have money in them and it's never spent, because that's not an accurate picture. And what I want to come from me as a recommendation to the county board, which is what I'm voting on when we do a budget, is an accurate picture. So that's why I wanted a finance committee. Now, if the commission feels that it's not necessary, that's perfectly fine. But I wanted to bring it up for your thought and consideration. I'm not asking for a decision now.
Okay.
And if there are no other questions, we can move on to the aquatics report. Kim, did you want to add anything to the report, or?
I just want to mention one thing, and it's an addition. It's in this additional packet that you guys have on your desk. I just kind of wanted to share a little bit of good news. We got a letter from a patron. She'd actually lost her diamond earrings in the pool. It happened over in the summertime. There was water fitness going on one side of the pool, and the breaker swim team going on the other side. She noticed when she came out of the locker room after lap swimming, and then these other groups came in. In the letter, she comments how, the water aerobics ladies started looking for these earrings. The swim team kids were swimming along the bottom, trying to help her out. the lifeguards were all helping, and I just kind of wanted to pass on, in addition to my report, just to show you the kind of teamwork and camaraderie that all of our groups seem to have into helping one individual. Both diamond earrings, which were small, were found and recovered and returned to her. So this is just a letter from her saying thank you, but I just kind of wanted to point out all of the teamwork and everything that happened along with all of that. So any questions for me regarding my report this month?
I don't see any, so
Alrighty.
we will move on to the director's report. Jason?
First thing I wanted to talk about was about the Carver model. At our last month's meeting, I mentioned that I would be meeting with both Dennis Aloya as well as Tim Nelson from Northwestern Michigan College. And NMC, they actually utilized the Carver model. The three of us sat down and discussed some of the challenges or how well we would be able to implement the Carver model specifically to the Parks and Recreation Commission. I've emailed Dennis drafted an email to me in regards to how well this would work for our specific commission, which I assume all of you had received it. I didn't get any return back to me, and I'll just, for the sake of argument, I'll just read through the email. It's fairly quick. Jason, you've asked the relevance of implementing the Carver model between Parks and Recreation Board and you as department head. From what I've learned, the implementation of this system in certain conducive organizations can work very well. It takes a clear and concise understanding of roles and responsibilities, trust, respect, and fairness. It is certainly worth exploring. Since the Parks Board has certain authority and other limitations placed on its governance by the County Board, which limits its ability to develop a full range of policies, and the fact that I supervise you, the viability of this system would need to be carefully evaluated. Could such a system be implemented at a subordinate board level without the County Board implementing? I spoke with contacts in Northern Michigan College who indicated it took more than a year of evaluation and planning before the system was implemented there. They strongly encouraged that this be a process that included education, public awareness, clearly defined policy guidelines, and strict adherence to the roles of the board and administrator. Any discussions of this system being implemented would need the involvement of the County Board and administrative staff. I've included for your use a Carver Model Handbook, which I think precisely explains the system. If we decide to move forward, this will be extremely helpful. Thank you. That's kind of the follow-up that Dennis moved forward with. He realizes that this may have one of the things we discussed is this may have some challenges because of this board's relationship with the county board at a higher level. I think this is something, I understand the Carver model, and I think it would be very helpful for our commission, but I think for us to maximize the benefits of using the Carver model at this commission level, we need to have the buy-in, and we have to have some teamwork from the Board of Commissioners as well as Dennis Aloya. Dennis is willing to move forward and help out with that, and I'd like to. I guess I would ask the commission if they're willing to do that. I know we've talked about coming up with some ends policies, but I'm curious if there'd be a commissioner or two that'd be interested in sitting down with Dennis and I and seeing how we can move forward with this process and implementing the Carver model for Parks and Recreation, and possibly asking for some concessions or some type of a different relationship with the Board of Commissioners, or exploring some different options for it to be implemented and implemented effectively here.
I would volunteer if they'll have me.
I would volunteer for such a task, too.
Wonderful. All right. Are two enough?
I would say two are enough, because we don't need to necessarily make it a committee, because we know how challenging it can be to get a committee together, but we can certainly have a couple commissioners meet with Dennis and I and talk about some possible options.
All right. Do you have anything else on your report?
Actually, I do. I gave a presentation last week to the Resource Management and Administration Committee, and it was kind of a follow-up to the to the budget presentation that I gave to the full county board. I've got it on PowerPoint. It just takes a few minutes. I'd just like to go through it and bring the Parks and Recreation Commission up to date with how we're doing financially within each of our individual departments. I don't have to say my name and my address, do I?
No.
This was prepared in preparation for last week's Resource Management Administration Committee meeting. And so the dates that I utilized through this are the 1st of November. But one of the things that I did want to bring to the commission's attention is the average amount each property pays to Grand Traverse County in taxes is $397.30. Of that, the amount that reaches Parks and Recreation is $2.68.
I have a question.
Sure.
Does that include facilities? Or is that just your department?
That does not include facilities because I tried to calculate that,
Oh,
and there's
that-
some
I just
other
wondered.
unusual revenues that come in there. So
Okay.
with a little more time, Dean and I are working on that. And this last slide, if any commissioner wants additional information on this, I can show you how I broke this down to come up with that number. For the Parks and Recreation Commission, and the Parks and Recreation Commission, for those of you that were at our budget meeting, is kind of an unusual department within our budget. And I'm not saying you guys are unusual. What I'm saying is the financing for the department typically comes through this department in the budget. And that comes in where the fund, or the allocation from the general fund comes in, as well as where the fund balance, Parks and Recreation fund balance comes in. So with 85% of the year complete, we have not utilized any of the Parks and Recreation fund balance. For 2010, we were scheduled to utilize $104,953. So up through 85% of the year, we haven't utilized any. If the trend continues, we won't utilize any. And that was the best case scenario that I presented to the Parks and Recreation Commission during my budget presentation back in July. If we began utilizing it today at that prorated amount, we'd only, so if we broke the year down to 365 units and we started utilizing that prorated amount each day, we would still reduce our reliance on our fund balance by $89,210. So the other major revenue that we have coming in through the Parks and Recreation Commission is our general fund allocation of $271,121, and we have received 100% of that so far in 2010. At the Civic Center, with 85% of the year complete, we've spent 59% of our expenditures, but we've only realized 31% of our revenues. Part of the reason for that is we haven't received our largest revenue, which comes in from the YMCA. They typically pay us in December because they have a lot of fall softball. So they pay us for their spring, summer, and fall softball rentals in December. Typically, based on the past 2 years' revenue from YMCA, when we receive that check, we'll see we will have realized 57% of our revenues, which would be very closely in line with our expenditures. One of the things that you'll see within the budget is we've eliminated a $10,000 revenue based on American Legion's rentals of our baseball fields. We did make $4,000 on that program this past year for baseball, but that did not go into the Civic Center department of the budget. That went into the baseball department of the budget. If we continue to run baseball for the next few years when we run baseball, we will see that revenue that still will not go into Civic Center. That will go into its own budget department. So we are outstanding with some of our concession receipts as well, and that's a revenue that goes directly to the Civic Center.
Jason, that revenue number does not reflect any staff time, is that correct?
For
baseball? American Legion baseball?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Within Easling Pool, at 85% of the year, we've only utilized 73% of our expenditures, but we've realized 86% of our revenues. This is exciting for us because we're over our pace right now. This presentation was done with 85% of the year or being completed, but our largest billings come in December from the high school swim team, the Breakers, and TBA. Over the past 2 years, just averaging those revenues, we've averaged $44,854. By adding if we stop taking any money in the pool for the remainder of the year, and just brought in those 3 revenues, we will realize 104% of our budgeted revenues. That's exciting. It kind of lends to, it would be the highest revenue we've seen in the past 10 years. The county's accounting software, I can only call up records 10 years back. So It would definitely be the highest revenue in the past 10 years. I can't say this with certainty, but I would imagine it would be the highest revenue we've ever seen in the swimming pool. The expenditure would only be the 5th highest expenditure out of those past 10 years. And the allocation to the Easling Pool will be the 3rd lowest it's been in those 10 years. As you guys have all seen this quote before, this is kind of sums up the gist of the Lutra report. And it talks about how, and essentially the Lutra report, as I've told you before, is pushing us from being a rental-based revenue stream organization, or an organization that relies on rental base for our revenues, and making changes within the pool that make us more of a membership-based organization. In order to make that change, Lutra suggests within their report that's going to take 2 to 3 years. And what it basically boils down to, we've been working to implement Lutra for just over 1 year. Kim joined us. I did not implement Lutra until we had an aquatic manager on site. Kim came on with us on October 22nd, 2009. We're just over 1 year into the implementation. She hit the ground running. We're 1 year into 12 months into a 36-month implementation, and we are going to have record revenues in the pool. We're going to have the 5th lowest, or we're going to have the 5th highest, 5th lowest expenditures in the pool in the past 10 years, and the 3rd lowest allocation to the pool. I'm comfortable at this point saying that the Lutra report is working. You know, we're 1/3 of the way through this process, and we're just now seeing some of the benefits of the Lutra report, and I'm comfortable saying that it is working. Kim's utilized the Lutra report, and she's done a great job at utilizing that Lutra report like it is her strategic plan, specifically for the pool. And we're reaping the benefits of it right now. With some of the changes and some of the things that she's continuously working on to improve, I don't see why this trend wouldn't continue in the future years. So I guess I'd like to congratulate Kim and tell her good job for implementing the Lutra report. And I wanted to let the commissioners know that this is working.
Any questions for Jason?
Yeah.
No.
How was, I saw part of your, of this on TV. I didn't see the end. How was it received?
I haven't heard anything from the Board of Commissioners, and typically I don't. So, I talked with Dennis Aloy about it. He thought it was appropriate. He was happy to hear some positive news from the department.
Great. Congratulations. It looks good.
Thanks. We also have Power Island. We're at 85% of the year. We've utilized 66% of expenditures. We've realized 99% so far. If we see another $26, we will have achieved our revenues for the year. Twin Lakes, this is the one that the commission, you guys have identified as needing a business plan for, and this is one that we've realized 75%. We've utilized 81% of our expenditures, and we've only realized 75% of our revenues. There are a few factors for this, and this is a park that I'd like to thank you for identifying we need a business plan for this park, because the usage in this park has changed due to some controls that are outside of, or due to some constraints that are outside of our control. Predominantly being some of the laws that have changed regarding day camps. We've lost some revenue because the state's made it more challenging to have a day camp at our facility. You know, we lost our biggest revenue out there, which was about a $20,000 bill each year from Olivet Band Camp, because of these new laws associated with having camps, as well as the travel to get from Olivet all the way up here. We've also seen some of our other day camps shorten their time with us by a day or two in order to get around some of these laws. And that's made it challenging, and we have to find another niche for this park, and we have to do some different programming here. It is encouraging, kind of anecdotally, since we built the pavilion as part of the Access to Recreation project out there, we've seen a pretty big increase in the number of phone calls inquiring about renting facilities out there, whether they be the lodge, the pavilion, or the dorms. And we've seen, I can't say I don't typically answer the phone. That's something that Maryland typically does. We've seen a pretty big increase in people inquiring and people renting that facility throughout the course of the entire year, not just in the summer. One of the big draws right now is weddings at the pavilion because of the location. So we are seeing an increase there, and that's something that we may identify in the business plan is maybe becoming more of a bridal type facility. But it's something that we could seriously look into when we look at our business plan for that park. Howe Arena, we're doing well in Howe. We've only utilized 45% of our expenditures, and right now we're looking at we've realized 111% of our revenues. So we're doing well in Howe Arena as well. So it's going to be a while before our department is able to sustain itself. But the annual allocation to Parks and Recreation, I look at it as an investment from the Board of Commissioners and an investment to our commission and our department. So now I'm done.
Now that you're done, you want questions?
Any questions?
Commissioner Larson?
I speak only for myself, but in the past year or so, my satisfaction as a user of the swimming pool has gone up tremendously. So those changes, at least as one user, extremely satisfied camper over here. Also, just my perusing of all the budget data that you present us, it looks like you've done a fine job of corralling the labor cost at the pool and bringing those numbers right down into where they should be at this point in the year when they were starting out not as good at the beginning of the year. So job well done on that. And
that's a job well done. That's a job well done for Kim. She's been stressed out a little bit about that, but I think we've come to a good agreement and a good plan for the remainder of the year.
Yeah, well, and nice report. I really like the. I mean, it summarizes what was in here, but it was good.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? All right. This is our next opportunity, our second opportunity for public comment. Any public comment? Seeing none. Commissioner comments? Commissioner Clark.
I just wanted to go back to Kim's aquatic manager's report. My wife and I live in an area where we don't get trick-or-treaters. So we took advantage of the trunk or treat and took our car down to the Civic Center and
Filled
had
with
a great
candy?
time on Halloween, on the Saturday before Halloween, and with the trick-or-treaters that were going through the Civic Center at the parking lot. And I commend the program, and I hope you continue with it.
Yeah, we need to expand on the amount of cars for next year, but I think it was a success, so.
Thank you.
Okay, any other commissioner comments? I have a few. I will not be at December's meeting. I want to say that I have thoroughly enjoyed being your chair over the last year. I think we've accomplished a great deal. We have a strategic plan. For the first time, we invited staff to participate in recommendations, and as a result of that, we have a memorial tree program, in large part to Commissioner Clark. I'm a firm believer, however, that different leaders bring different attributes, talents to the position. And I am going to recommend, and I hope you all will seriously consider it, I'm going to recommend that Commissioner Larson be our chair next year. I understand that this decision is not going to be made until the January commission meeting, but in my mind, Commissioner Larson has exemplified leadership skills on a number of occasions. He's taken the lead on performance measures. He took it upon himself to go to the MRPA conference. He has been involved in just about every aspect of Parks and Rec, and I sincerely hope that you will strongly consider him next year for chair and look at him grimace. I want to say, too, that I continue to be concerned, and it's primarily based on the county board's budget. And I am concerned for the department. Please remember that in 2009, the county spent $430,000 more than they took in revenue. Last year at this time, the county as a whole had spent 78.1% of their budgeted expenditures. This year, at the same time, according to the finance director who gave us this report at Ways and Means, we are at 79.76%. So that means we are on track for spending over $1 million more than we take in revenue. We are anticipating that we're going to spend another $625,000 more next year than we take in revenue. We came up $750,000 short in projected revenue, and we are looking at, based on, if you add in next year, we are looking at a $2.7 million hole. And the first rule of thumb when you're in a hole is you have to stop digging. The county will eventually run out of money. We can't keep this up. The county's going to have to make some tough decisions. And I just wanted to express that concern and thank you all for serving as commissioners this year. And I look forward to next year. And I anticipate that I'm going to be back. Anything else? All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Before we do,
Yes.
I thought your idea about utilizing the pool, or that having more of the citizens learn how to swim was an excellent idea, and thank you for that proposal.
Thank you. I did go back several years, and the most, and this was according to the Lutra report, the most we've spent on swim lessons for children, the most revenue that we've received, not the expense, I'm sorry, the revenue side, the most we've received in revenue is approximately $52,000. And if we could teach every child in Grand Traverse County to swim, I just think it's a heck of a goal, and I think it's doable. Oh, I wanted to say one more thing. Commissioner Clark, you have repeatedly been a strong supporter of a Parks Authority. I did bring the idea up at a Central Neighborhood meeting. And the Central Neighborhood residents that I approached said that they would be open to the idea. Certainly questions would have to be answered, they would have concerns, but that's another thing that I would like to try and work on as a member of this board, not as chair, but as a member of this board. And I also am looking forward to working on ways to expand our trail system. I've got a number of goals that I want to accomplish over the next 2 years. And thank you, Grand Traverse County voters, District 7, for re-electing me.
It seems to me that the possibility of some kind of public fund that would be willing to finance that kind of swimming program that you propose would be a possibility. It's something that I would give to, and, beyond it being a taxpayer, just because of the value, as you suggested. So.
All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move that we adjourn.
Is there support?
Support.
All those in favor, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Have a good Thanksgiving.